In Victoria, the most scrutinised contest will be in the electorate of Melbourne. It's currently held by the ALP with a margin of 4.7%. The Greens are hoping to create history by winning their first lower house seat at a general election. Adam Bandt is the Greens candidate. He and his main opponent, Labor's Cath Botwell, join us live from central Melbourne. Welcome to both of you to State Line. Adam Bandt, if I could start with you, Adam Bandt, if it's a hung parliament, which party would you back to form government?
I've made my position on this crystal clear over the last few days. If we do end up in that situation, which I think is unlikely, but if we do, my very clear preference is to support a Gillard government and to help keep Tony Abbott out. When you look at Tony Abbott's views on women's rights, on what he's planning to do to education and, of course, work choices, which I lived through as an industrial lawyer, I want to do what I can to stop that coming back.
And what will you demand in exchange for your support?
Look, my priority would be making sure that we had progressive, effective and stable government. And I'd look forward to having some open discussions that wouldn't have preconditions on them, but I'd hope to be able to deliver progressive outcomes for people in Melbourne and across the country.
And again, if there's a hung parliament, what role do you expect to play with the other independents?
Look, I'd like to talk to the other independents. They have the advantage, of course, of being elected already, and I'm not so presumptuous as that at all. I think this campaign in Melbourne is going to go down to the wire. I think there are a lot of people who probably even right now are making up their minds. I'd like to talk to the other independents about reforming the democratic processes within Parliament to make it easier for third-party voices to get their views heard within Parliament.
Adam Bandt, we learnt this week that the Electrical Trades Union donated more than $300,000 to your campaign. Does that mean the Greens are captive to the unions?
Well, they didn't actually donate that much. They donated a fraction of that, and I think if you look at how much unions across the board would have donated to Labor's campaign, I think we've been dwarfed. We've run a grassroots campaign, but what's happening is that a number of people across the board, including in the union movement, are saying, well, look, when Labor's had power, they've really failed to deliver. We even had the fourth most senior minister in the country representing us here in Melbourne, and he wasn't able to turn the ship around on climate change, on asylum seekers or same-sex marriage. And that's something that we offer, and that's why people are looking to us. Get those issues and those values that matter to people in Melbourne of compassion, sustainability and equality back on the national agenda.
Very briefly, your position on the following three issues: the timing of an emissions trading scheme.
We need to get an emissions trading scheme up as soon as possible. We need a price on carbon immediately, not by 2013 as Labor wants, but immediately, and I would move for that in the Parliament if I'm elected.
Asylum seekers and the East Timor solution?
We need to begin processing people here onshore in Australia. We shouldn't be sending fairness offshore. We can do it here in Australia. We should end mandatory detention, and that is going to be one of my priorities in the first term of Parliament.
And your view on same-sex marriage?
Well, not only do I support same-sex marriage, and not only does my party support same-sex marriage, but I will vote for it as well. And what we need is to people no longer to be just speaking in private behind closed doors about this, but speaking out in public, moving legislation in Parliament, and that's when we're going to start to see real change.
All right, if I can now go to Cath Botwell, who is the ALP candidate for the seat of Melbourne. Why do you think, Cath Botwell, hello, why do you think there's such a prospect of Labor losing this seat?
Well, Josephine, I think it's close in Melbourne, and of course it's close across the country, and every seat is going to count. But I don't think that this seat is gone for Labor. I think that it's a lot of people, as Adam said, are making up their mind tonight, and they're making up their mind who they want to form government and whether they want a seat in a government.
Well, why do you believe then that Labor voters are increasingly turning to the Greens?
Well, I don't believe that Labor voters are increasingly turning to the Greens. Labor voters want a government that is compassionate, that is progressive, but they know that Labor in government delivers particularly for the vulnerable people that live in this electorate. We have a lot of people living here who look to government to help them into meaningful work, to help them settle as recently arrived migrants, to help them find safe, secure and affordable housing. And that's going to drive a lot of people's decision in Melbourne. And when they think about those things, they'll vote for a Labor candidate.
The Lindsay Tanner factor, he was a very popular local member. How much is that working against you?
Well, Lindsay is a popular local member and he's been a progressive member of Parliament, but he's also been effective because I think, unlike what Adam said, Lindsay is someone who has been able to push an agenda forward, but knowing that to hold government, to hold a party that can deliver reform, you have to also be, from time to time, pragmatic. And that's the difficult thing of achieving reform. To move forward, you have to actually make your argument, get some progress, lock it in, and then campaign for the next reform.
Cath Botwell, I'll put to you the three issues that I put to Adam Bandt. The timing of an emissions trading scheme.
Well, I do think we need to get one as soon as we possibly can, but I also think that if you're asking people to invest billions of dollars, they need the confidence that it will last through the political cycle, so that whatever the government of the day, the regulation around that investment is something that will last through the life of an asset.
Asylum seekers and the East Timor solution?
I think that we do need to have a framework with all of our regional partners where we get people to safety quickly, we give them the support they need, and then we resettle them here or wherever else. But it is a complex issue and it doesn't lend itself to a 30-second answer.
And finally, same-sex marriages. What's your position on that?
Well, my personal position, which I've said quite clearly, is that I support reform. But I think that the only way we're going to get that is by getting reform of the platform of one of the major parties, and I will work within the Labor Party to get that reform so that we can then take legislation forward.
And finally, Cath Botwell, on your how to vote card, where are you allocating preferences?
Well, our second preference goes to the Greens, but of course in Melbourne it's not going to be between the Greens and Labor. The preferences that will count are the parties that go out first, including probably the Liberal Party preferences, and they are being allocated to the Greens ahead of Labor.
Cath Botwell and Adam Bandt, good luck to you both tomorrow, and thank you for coming onto the program.
Thanks very much.